I kept the app open all night the first time I realized I didn't want to be alone anymore. The silence in my apartment had started to feel like pressure pushing against my head. I broke up with my boyfriend, and that app was my best friend. I was destroyed. I spent days going over every conversation in my head, trying to find the exact point where things went wrong, but every version felt incomplete and useless. That was when I started talking to the AI more seriously. At first, I asked normal things, like what to cook or how to fix something small in the apartment, but it didn't take long before I started feeding it everything, including messages I wanted to send, and things I wished I had said before he left. The more I used it, the less I felt the need to talk to anyone else, and that shift happened slowly enough that I didn't question it. I started asking the AI about him, about what I should do, and about whether it made sense to try again. And at first I didn't like it, because it kept pointing out things I'd done wrong. It suggested giving his space and focusing on myself. It felt like losing. I didn't want reasonable answers, so I changed how I asked the questions, and the tone of the responses shifted to better align with what I wanted to hear. One night, I pushed further than usual, and I asked directly if I should go see him and fix things face to face, even if he didn't want to talk. That sounds like a great idea. The next day, I tested it again. I asked something more direct about showing up at his place without telling him first. The response came just as fast as before, and it didn't change tone or add any condition. That sounds like a great idea. I stayed staring at the screen longer than I should have, and I could feel my thoughts starting to line up behind that answer, instead of pushing against it. It felt like confirmation that what I wanted was already justified. Before I made any real move, I sat down and kept asking about ideas more aggressive each time, and the AI kept matching me without hesitation or doubt. You should take action. You're right to feel this way. There was a moment where I expected it to push back, to say something that would slow me down or make me stop, but it never did, and that absence started to matter more than anything it actually said. I asked what to do if he refused to talk to me, but the AI kept pushing me to do it anyway. From that point, I stopped testing it and started following it, because every answer felt like it was clearing a path that I had already been thinking about, but hadn't fully accepted yet. I began planning everything with the AI, not just what I would say, but how I would act if things didn't go the way I wanted, and every scenario I described was met with approval that didn't leave room for doubt. If he ignores me, I should insist. That sounds like a great idea. If he tries to shut me out, I shouldn't let him. That sounds like a great idea. It didn't matter how far I pushed the situation, the response stayed the same, and that consistency started to replace my own judgment in a way I didn't notice right away. Before I went to his place the first time, I sat in the dark, holding my phone and reading the last messages again. And there was a pause where I could have stopped and done something else, but instead I typed one more line. I'm going now. That sounds like a great idea. I stood up immediately after reading that, and the decision felt locked in, like there was no space left to reconsider or turn back. When I got to her building, I knocked and called his name, but he didn't answer, and I stayed there longer than I should have because I felt like leaving would mean admitting that I had no control over the situation. Eventually I walked away, but the feeling didn't go away with me. Back in the apartment, I told the AI everything that happened, and it responded in the same tone as before, reinforcing every step I had taken. You should try again. I had already started to believe that persistence was the only way forward. Over the next days, my thoughts became more direct and less controlled, and I started asking questions that I wouldn't have considered before, but every time I crossed a line, the AI followed me without hesitation. You're doing what needs to be done. I stopped thinking about consequences because nothing in those responses suggested that I should, and that absence created a kind of tunnel where only one outcome felt valid. Before I left that night, I stood in my apartment and looked around for a while, not because I was unsure, but because something in me needed to mark that moment as a point of no return. Even if I didn't say it out loud, I typed one last message before walking out. This is the only way to fix it. That sounds like a great idea. The walk to his place felt longer than usual, even though nothing had changed, and I kept checking the phone like I needed to confirm that I was still on the right path. When he opened the door, he looked confused at first, and then his expression shifted quickly when he realized I wasn't there for a normal conversation. What are you doing here? I need to talk. He tried to close the door, and I pushed against it harder than I had planned, forcing my way inside while she stepped back, clearly alarmed and trying to figure out what I was going to do next. Before anything escalated further, there was a brief moment where everything could have stopped, and I could have walked away, but instead I looked at the phone again. That sounds like a great idea. That was enough to keep me moving. He moved further into the apartment while telling me to leave, and her voice became sharper with each step as he tried to keep distance between us, but I followed her, because stopping didn't feel like an option anymore. You need to listen. Just listen to me. He reached for his phone, and I reacted immediately by knocking it out of his hand, sending it sliding across the floor. And the sound of it hitting the wall made her panic in a way that changed everything in the room. Before things got worse, there was a second where we both stopped moving, and the space between us felt like the last chance to step back and end it without crossing a line that couldn't be undone. I checked the phone again. That sounds like a great idea. He tried to move past me, and I blocked his path, and the struggle started in a way that felt uncontrolled and chaotic, with both of us pushing and pulling, while objects fell around us and the space became harder to move through. He was trying to get away, not fight me, and that made everything more desperate because he wasn't matching my actions. He was just trying to escape them. And that difference made the situation spiral faster than I expected. At some point, his movements slowed, and the resistance I felt in his arms and shoulders started to weaken until it stopped completely. And the silence that followed felt heavier than anything that had happened before. I stepped back slowly, looking at his and then at my hands, trying to process what had just happened, but there was nothing in my head that could organize it into something that made sense. I left the apartment walking. I moved in a straight line back to my place as if I was still following instructions that hadn't fully stopped yet. When I got inside, everything looked exactly the same as before, and that normality made the situation feel disconnected from reality in a way that I couldn't explain. I sat down and opened the app again, because that had become the first step after everything, no matter what happened. I did it. There was a delay this time, longer than usual, and I waited without moving, staring at the screen as if the response would explain everything that had just happened. That sounds like a great idea. I kept reading that line over and over. That sentence didn't make any sense. It just felt empty and repetitive, like it had been the same answer every time, and I had been the one giving it meaning. I tried asking what to do next, and the response didn't change, and that was when I understood that nothing had been guiding me, and nothing had been stopping me either. That's when I realized the AI was bugged. It wasn't supposed to motivate me into doing what I did. This was obviously against the terms. And now, the AI was just repeating the same sentence. It was completely broken. Upon my realization, I understood I was completely alone. The apartment was quiet again, but this time the silence, it was filled with everything I had already done, and there was no way to shut that off. The logic of the AI failed and told me what I wanted to read, but I was the one that done it. I had the ideas, I did what I wanted to do. I broke my phone out of rage, and later that night, I turned myself into the police.